What if everything you were taught about the first people in America was wrong? For decades, textbooks told us a clean, simple story. Around 13,000 years ago, a group of hunters called the Clovis people crossed a land bridge from Siberia into Alaska and became the first humans to ever set foot in the Americas. Case closed. End of story. But then, archaeologists started digging in places that story could not explain. Footprints pressed into ancient mud, stone tools buried far deeper and far older than they should be. Bones and hearths dated to a time when, according to the official theory, no human being was supposed to be anywhere near this continent. Suddenly, the tidy timeline started to crack. If these sites are real, then someone was walking across the Americas thousands of years before Clovis ever existed. So who were they? How did they get here? And why did mainstream science spend decades refusing to believe the evidence sitting right in front of it? This is the Pre-Clovis Mystery, and it might just rewrite the entire story of how humans discovered the New World. For most of the 20th century, the Clovis First theory ruled American archaeology like an unquestioned law. It was named after a distinctive style of spear point first found near Clovis, New Mexico, in the 1930s. These finely crafted stone points, dated to roughly 13,000 years ago, were believed to mark the very beginning of human presence in the Americas. The theory was simple. Ice Age hunters crossed the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia, then moved south through an ice-free corridor between massive glaciers and became the ancestors of nearly every indigenous population on two continents. For decades, any site that claimed to be older than Clovis was treated with deep suspicion and sometimes outright hostility. Careers were damaged, papers were dismissed, the scientific community had drawn a hard line in time, and very few dared to cross it. Then came Monteverde. In southern Chile, archaeologist Tom Dillehay uncovered a site with preserved wooden structures, plant remains, and even footprints, all pointing to human occupation as far back as 14,500 years ago. This was not just slightly older than Clovis, it was in South America, thousands of miles from the supposed entry point in Alaska. If people were already that far south by then, the old story simply could not hold together. The debate raged for nearly 2 decades. But eventually, after exhaustive re-examination, Monteverde was accepted as legitimate, and once that first crack appeared, more sites began emerging from the shadows of scientific rejection. At the Galt site in Texas and Cactus Hill in Virginia, researchers uncovered tools beneath Clovis-era soil layers, artifacts that seemed to belong to an entirely earlier tradition of toolmaking. Then, at the Topper site in South Carolina, some researchers proposed dates stretching back over 15,000 years, though these claims remain fiercely debated even today. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping discovery came from White Sands National Park in New Mexico. In 2021, scientists announced the dating of fossilized human footprints preserved in ancient lakebed sediment. Using radiocarbon dating on seeds embedded above and below the footprint layers, the research team calculated an age of roughly 21,000 to 23,000 years old. If accurate, these footprints would place humans in North America during the height of the last glacial maximum, a period when massive ice sheets were believed to have made a land crossing nearly impossible. As you can imagine, this claim ignited fierce scientific debate. Some researchers challenged the dating method, arguing that the seeds used could reflect an old carbon reservoir effect from aquatic plants, potentially skewing the age estimate. In response, follow-up studies used 2 additional independent dating methods, radiocarbon dating of pollen grains and a technique called luminescence dating on the sediment itself, and both approaches returned results consistent with the original age range. As of now, this remains one of the strongest, though still contested, pieces of evidence for a truly ancient human presence in North America. So how did people possibly get here that early if massive ice sheets blocked the interior route south? This is where the coastal migration theory enters the picture. Instead of walking through an ice-free corridor inland, some scientists now argue that early humans may have traveled along the Pacific coastline using boats or simple watercraft, following a kelp highway rich with fish, shellfish, and marine mammals. This coastal route could have remained passable even when interior paths were sealed shut by ice, offering a plausible answer to a puzzle that once seemed impossible. Taken together, these pieces, Monteverde, White Sands, Gault, and others, are steadily dismantling the old idea that Clovis hunters were the very first to arrive. Instead, a new picture is forming. One of multiple waves of migration stretching back much further in time than anyone previously believed, arriving by more than one route, and possibly by more than one method of travel entirely. So, who really discovered America? The honest answer is, we still do not know for certain, and that is precisely what makes this mystery so compelling. What we do know is that the old, simple story of a single migration wave arriving 13,000 years ago no longer fits the evidence buried in the ground. Footprints in ancient mud, tools beneath tool layers, and dating methods cross-checked again and again are quietly rewriting one of the oldest chapters in human history. This is a story about more than just ancient footprints. It's a reminder that scientific certainty is often just the best explanation we have until new evidence forces us to look again. The people who first walked into a completely unexplored continent left behind only fragments, a footprint here, a stone tool there. Yet those fragments are enough to shake an entire field of science to its core. If this journey into humanity's ancient past fascinated you, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our early history. And let me know in the comments, who do you think truly discovered America first? I would love to hear your theory.